Data details. Let's take a few minutes to examine the nuances and rules for reporting in each field for each record type related to student incidents. So we are again at the incident data screen. I'm going to click Apply Filters, and that will bring up a list of incidents. These are all the incidents that we have previously reported in this academic year. Because we did not specify a school of attendance, we have all the incidents associated to our LEA. I'm going to select Add a New Incident because it will let me go field by field in the sync, the SIRS, and the SOF. You have the sync, the SIRS, and this section here is student information is part of the sync. You're adding student information into your incident. If I were to select statutory offense, you would see student offense, sync, SIRS, SOF. Okay, so now that we got that, let's start from the beginning. The academic year is pre-populated with this current academic year. In July, the new academic year starts, and as you can see, 2021 is preloaded, so you could technically select it now, but of course you wouldn't have anything to enter. The reason why you cannot go back historically is because the sync and the SIRS and the SOF were one file, the student discipline file, or the SDIS, or the CSIS, whatever you call it, right? And so the reconstruction of the student discipline has broken it down into 3 file types. And going forward, that's what we use. So if you wanted historical information, you would have to rely on the certification reports from years past. You do have to select the school in which the incident occurred. And you do have to have incident ID local. And typically when you're submitting this data via batch file, it's system generated. So this is not a field that you would ever have to populate in your student information system. Typically, your student information system will have its own numbering system. The incident ID local is key because it's going to be what ties the sync, the SIRS, and the SOF together. When you're submitting these records via batch in individual file types, this ID ties the result and the SOF to the sync. So it's a very important field here. And then we have incident occurrence date. And this is simply the date in which the incident occurred. What's important about the incident occurrence date is that the student must have been enrolled at the school of attendance when the incident occurred. So if we have a fight at a school and the incident occurs at high school A, that is not relevant as far as reporting the incident if the student attends high school B. Because the discipline is going to come from high school B, the attendance is at high school B, the missed instruction is at high school B, right? If the incident happens at a middle school that adjoins the high school students that might be involved are going to be suspended from their high school. The curriculum that they miss is from their high school, and so the incident occurrence date has to be at the school of attendance. They have to be enrolled when the incident occurred. Note, it doesn't say where the incident occurred, it just has a date. So sometimes there's some confusion. Another point of confusion is disciplinary actions sometimes come well after an incident. There's investigations, sometimes there are intersessions, school's not in session, different things occur, right? Again, this is the incident occurrence date. What day did the incident happen? It has nothing to do with when the discipline was determined, completed, or administered. Now, as far as the SSID, if you're doing online maintenance, paste the SSID in here, and you'll notice I can't do anything with the local student ID, and I can't do anything with the student name. These are grayed out. That's how we like to describe it. And that's because when I validate this record, CalPADS is going to pull this information based on the SSID. So the next field we have in the sync is the removal to interim alternative setting reason code. The removal to interim alternative setting reason code is a code value that represents the reason a student was removed to that alternative setting for a period of 45 days or less. Now, this is required for every student with disabilities and cannot be populated for students in general education. As you can see, a removal could be by hearing officer, school personnel, or there was no interim removal. So if your student has an incident and they're not removed to an alternative setting, 3 would be the answer. 3 would be the most popular answer for our students with disabilities because removals are very rare. Consult your IEP team if you suspect there was a removal or if you have a record to submit and there is a removal indicated. Again, removals are very rare. But the field has to be populated, so that's why we have code 3. Also required for students with disabilities is the Student Instructional Support Indicator. And it's an indication of whether or not during the time of discipline the student has received instructional support. If you indicate yes for students with disability, you are saying that the services related to that student's IEP were provided. That's what yes means for students with disability. For students with general education, a no would be a total cessation of services. So for students in general education, something as little as homework during suspension would be instructional support. So you can see the requirements for providing support to our students with disability is different than those in general education. The Student Instructional Support Indicator should also be populated for general ed students who have a discipline lasting 10 days or more. The Statutory Offense Indicator is required, you see the asterisk, and it's just saying, is this incident related to a 48900 or 48915 Ed Code violation? If no, there's no offense to populate. If yes, we map that violation of the Ed Code to the Student Offense Code. The Incident Result Code. What was the result of the incident? So we have several disciplinary actions like out-of-school suspension, in-school suspension, and expulsion. For every expulsion, the modification category code is required. Was the enforcement suspended, shortened, or was there no modification? There's also other means of correction. So if your school uses restorative justice or a student had an offense but didn't merit a suspension or expulsion, perhaps a counseling, a parent meeting, a referral to the office and the principal, that would be different types of other means of correction. There are some times when no action is taken. Also new this year are physical restraints, mechanical restraints, and incidents of seclusion, all which have their own specific code values. We want to make sure that you understand any student can be subject to mechanical or physical restraint or seclusion. We often associate these behavioral incidents with students with disabilities, but it can be any student. Also new are school-related arrests and law enforcement referrals. So law enforcement referrals include citations and exactly what it says, referrals, not including arrests. So the incident authority code could be school district or personnel, school or district personnel, a court order, a hearing officer, or the local governing board. The incident result duration days tells us how long the incident or result occurred. Code 300, 400, 500, 502, and 600 do not require days. If you use other means of correction or no action, the expectation is the incident result duration days is 0 or left blank. In this instance, we're going to say the student was suspended for 3 days. Now let's look at the student offense. Each one of these student offense code is mapped to one or several ed code sections, right? When we reference 48900 and 48915, these coded values have a description in those sections. And so let's say we have a student who commits robbery, and the student uses a handgun. This seems like a legitimate combination, doesn't it? So I'm going to try to validate. And so we have a few messages. We have a warning here in yellow, student not enrolled on the incident occurrence date, sync 0495. And then we have invalid student offense code, weapon category combination. So the soft 0091 tells me that my student offense code and my weapon category do not work. And so what I know is your weapon category, I say I have a handgun, there has to be an offense that suggests the student had a handgun. So we have possession of firearm. That would be a valid combination. I'm saying the student had a handgun, which is a firearm. I need to have an offense code that says the student had a firearm. So possessing a weapon is an offense, and the act that they use, robbery or extortion, is an offense. So this student, in fact, would need 2 records. So I'm going to remove this and try to validate again a second time. I expect to get a warning, but no fatal error. And again, I did. So I'm going to post the record. And let's find that incident. I think it was 11-5. Yeah, incident ID, all 5s. So let's open the record. And we're on the incident detail screen, and I can see the incident here. And so I have robbery extortion. Now I want to add another record. Why is that? Because the student used a firearm. So you can see the incident information is static. I'm going to add a second offense. Possession of a firearm. That firearm was a handgun, and I'm validating. And so now we have a record with the student who has multiple offenses. Now, I'm sure the student brings a gun to school, a 3-day suspension is not going to be the level of discipline the student receives. So let's go ahead and add a second result. And not only was the student suspended for 3 days, the student was eventually expelled. Unfortunately, no modification. There's one note that I want to bring up. We typically have a lot of questions about reporting expulsions. And so I'm dragging the CalPADS data guide before you. And the data guide is a great reference, right? So you can see right here, this little excerpt. The duration for discipline action of expulsion includes the number of instructional days the student missed due to the expulsion, which would be the number of instructional days from when the student is exited due to the expulsion to when the student is enrolled in the subsequent school, or the end of the school year, whichever comes first. And then there's some other stuff that I didn't memorize and I'm not going to memorize. But what that excerpt says in the data guide is when you're putting in the duration of days, in most cases, you are expelling the student until the time they enroll in another district or school, or until the school year ends. So if you expel a student in March, how many days from the day of the expulsion into the end of your school year? Or if a student's expelled in November and they go to the neighboring district in December, how many days from the date of the expulsion until, or how many days from the last day they were in attendance until they began school at the new district? So let's just say for this student, 45 days. And who did it? It was district personnel. So let's validate this record. And I'm going to post. And so I'm not going to do a whole lot. Certainly you can add multiple students, but I'm not going to do that. And as you can see, we have 2 incident result records, 2 student offenses. And if I wanted to add another student to this incident, I can. Perhaps Kyle didn't commit the robbery by himself. We have great variation, and that was the purpose of the reconstructing of the file type, right? We reconstructed the SDIS to the sync, the SIRS, and the SOF, and so that we can report multiple offenses for each student, multiple results. Previously, it was only the final disciplinary action. Also, you can report non-disciplinary actions, right? You have restraints and seclusions. We can report only incidents and results. Those are not necessarily tied to offenses. And of course, multiple students can belong to an incident. And so we went field by field. Hopefully you have a better understanding. If you want even greater knowledge, I would recommend that you go to the CalPAD CFS and you can go field by field. For business rules, as we demonstrated with the expulsion, the data guide is a great reference. Drag over here for you. Here's the CFS. This is a Word document. It also comes in an Excel spreadsheet, but you can see field by field. You have a definition, comments, the validation rules, what's required. So these are great resources. CFSV, right? This is a Word document. It comes in a Word document as well as an Excel spreadsheet. So that concludes this module. We will next review or preview a few different examples of incidents. And so we'll be looking at different scenarios on the incident detail screen.